And welcome to the OBX Wave Report for December the 15th. Today is Thursday. And for today, for our Wave Report, where we talk all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle, I'm going to get a little philosophical. We're going to do a little philosophy segment here. Um, So actually, we're not going to start out with surfing. We're going to start off with these little guys. So I found this while surfing Twitter. A friend of mine posted this tweet. Science Girl posted this tweet about Shimabara, Japan, where a volcano and an earthquake and a tsunami triggered new springs in Shimabara, which then flooded the streets and filled the water management system in the streets with this thin little layer of water, and the environment there was kept so pristine and pollution was kept so low that life there was able to thrive. And you can see this here in the form of these koi that now live in harmony and cooperation and balance with the people of Shimabara. And so they have the wonderful benefit of having these beautiful creatures there with them as partners in their environment in Shimabara. And they have also all the wonderful benefits of pollution-free living and living in a pristine environment. And why am I talking about this for the OBX Wave Report? Um, well, I don't know about you or those of you who surf, but what drew me to surfing initially was a sense of love and in the way a desire to enter the Earth's ocean and be a part of it, to experience all of the wonders of nature in a form of a sport that was not competitive in the sense of winner versus loser, although we can have surf competitions in which winners and losers are declared, but the vast majority of surfing, even for professional surfers, the vast majority of the time spent surfing is spent out there in the ocean, finding a way to dance on the waves. And this dancing on the waves is a cooperation with nature. You can't defeat nature as a surfer. The If you take surfing, uh, take on surfing with a philosophy that you're going to go out there and beat nature, you're going to lose. You're going to get thrown. You're going to not learn how to balance yourself on your surfboard. You're going to have a fearful mindset and kind of a fear fight mindset, and that's exactly the kind of mindset that will not help you develop good surf fundamentals. You need to be relaxed. You need to be in balance. You need to be joyful, not fearful. And it's kind of ironic because surfers on professional surfers or big wave surfers face danger, and so we're continuously as surfers trying to both conquer our fear of nature, of the danger that comes at us in the form of waves, and it can be very visceral, very primal, and the danger of the ocean itself, because when you go out into the ocean, you're basically stepping into the wild. It is one of the wildest places remaining on Earth. You're out there with the forces of nature, the waves, the currents, the rip tides, And you're also out there with the predators, with the sharks. So when you go out there, you're in this constant process of facing your fears and also facing the glory and the joy of nature and finding a way to live and be joyful in that as you pursue the excellence in the art of surfing. And so this is something completely different as a sport. There's nothing like it. And um, in a way, it's a microcosm, in my opinion, of life itself. So that's the way we're going to start our wave report for today. And I'm going to commemorate this with a little ride that I captured on film yesterday over at Jeanette's Pier. And I'm just going to
take the heat out of you much quicker. Here we go. We got a nice
run this
right
for you
hand
guys.
turn, working the face, good pump backs, and a dismount.
And then we actually two
And
rides.
another right. Sweetness. Off the lip, good cutback. Floater. Not quite full turns, pumping into a short break. Oh, and get some air, but doesn't land it. Nice surf though there.
Okay, and so there we see a few surfers out on the Outer Banks honing their art, their craft, and their dance with nature. So I don't know. I think it's pretty understandable that surfers tend to be environmentalists and climate crisis activists for climate action because we as surfers spend a good amount of our time in the ocean with nature. And many of us we're drawn to surfing at first through our love of nature, through our hearing of this call, that nature summons us to dance. And as human beings, I think we all have a little bit of that. We all have that voice that calls to us. And the sensitive and joyful among us hear it. And there's a reason why we hear it, because there's prosperity there. There's excellence there when we accept the call, the summons to dance. So yeah, little thought today for the OBX Wave Report. A little deep, but now I'm just gonna get into the conditions, the conditions that the weather and climate conditions that we will experience here on the Outer Banks and in the North Atlantic over the coming days and that we are presently experiencing today, so that when we go out into the surf, we are alert and aware of those conditions, because our senses, our understanding of what's going on is a key aspect of surfing. So here we go. So looking at the NASA Worldview satellite shot from yesterday afternoon, we can see the continued march of weather systems across the northern hemisphere. And we have a low pressure system off the Atlantic, which is pumping out some swell here. And we still have this low hanging on near Europe, which was once a very powerful storm, but is now considerably reduced in stature. And then we have a third low pressure system over the central US, which is now starting to sweep into the Ohio Valley and the eastern US in the form of a front. And we're getting some rainy conditions here, some stormy conditions here in the Outer Banks. Looking at the infrared satellite shot, we can get a more updated, live, up-to-date image of the systems in the near Outer Banks environment. And here's the low pressure system over here near the Great Lakes and the associated frontal boundary which is now sweeping across the Outer Banks, bringing us light to moderate rain with occasional stronger storms embedded. And then off here, offshore, the swirl that indicates the low pressure system, which is at present the main wave maker for the Outer Banks. And last of all, a storm system off the US West Coast that appears to be trying to get its act together as it comes on shore, which will be the next event for the US and then later on for the Outer Banks. So looking at wave locations and local conditions, I'm going to go ahead and do our daily summary of 3 locations for the Outer Banks. We're going to start out at Jeanette's Pier. And at present, the wave heights are starting to come down a little bit. We've had some pretty big surf here for the East Coast over the past week in the range of 4 to 16 feet at some locations, which is just nuts for someone who grew up in Virginia Beach. This is kind of crazy. But at Jeanette's Pier right now, we have 3 to 5 foot waves, so coming down even from yesterday. The wave period for the primary swell is 14 seconds and 8 seconds for the secondary swell. Winds are out of the southeast. We've got pretty strong southeast winds across the Outer Banks, southeast and east-southeast winds. And at Jeanette's Pier, the southeast winds are coming in at 22 miles per hour. And at the southeast here, it's onshore flow. And these are strong onshore winds. So we might, if this persists, we might expect waves to build a bit through the day. The air temperature at Jeanette's Pier is 53 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ocean water temperature is 58 degrees Fahrenheit. The weather conditions are rain and wind with an expected high today of 60 degrees at Jeanette's Pier with those air temperatures and the ocean temperatures. Please make sure you've got your cold weather protection available. Moving down the coast to Rodanth, and I have the locals call it Rodanthony. It's like an invisible N in the word. So I've heard it said both ways. If one of you knows exactly what is the proper spelling for Rodanth or Rodanthony, please let me know. Because I've said it both ways and I don't know what the proper way to say Rodanth/Rodanthony is. So yeah, if you have a comment, please let me know. In any case, the waves down there, we're going to call it Rodanth for now. The waves down there at Rodanth are 3 to 4 feet, so a little bit smaller than Jeanette's Pier. Wave period is 14 seconds for the primary swell, 4 seconds for the secondary swell. And winds are coming in strong out of the east-southeast at 26 miles per hour. So getting pretty strong down there with that east-southeast flow. And of course, that is onshore with the winds coming out of the east-southeast with that east-facing beach. Air temperature at Rodanth is 57 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ocean water temperature is 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Weather conditions at Rodanth right now are light rain, strong winds, and the expected high for today at Rodanth is 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, ocean conditions and air conditions are cool, and so please mind your cold weather protection. Air temperatures in the range of the upper 50s, lower 60s are also pretty cool, so you're definitely going to need cold weather protection for your surf session at Rodanth today, should you partake. I'm going to provide a full survey of Hatteras wave conditions, but it's just worth noting that Buxton appears to always be the big wave spot here on the Outer Banks. There might be days when Buxton is not, but so far I haven't discovered one. I would love someone to give me a reason why Buxton is just so big. But again, today, Buxton's surf conditions ranging, though I saw earlier today, looked like 6 to 9 feet. So Buxton is still big. I think maybe the waves have come down a little bit since earlier this morning, but in any case, Big Buxton remains the rule for the Outer Banks. But moving down to Cape Hatteras and the east-facing beaches there at Cape Hatteras, the waves are 3 to 5 feet. That's come down even a little bit from this morning. They were 3 to 6 feet. The wave period for the primary swell is 14 seconds and 11 seconds for the secondary swell. Winds are also strong at Cape Hatteras out of the east-southeast at 23 miles per hour, and that is also onshore for the east-facing beaches, be cross-shore for the south-facing beaches. And the air temperature there at Hatteras right now is 58 degrees Fahrenheit. The ocean water temperature considerably warmer at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Interesting 12-degree Fahrenheit variance between Jeanette's Pier and Cape Hatteras just over the course of, I'd say, about like 40 miles of coastline. So pretty amazing temperature variance between Cape Hatteras and Jeanette's Pier. Weather conditions are light rain and strong winds with an expected high today of 66 degrees Fahrenheit. So keep mind to your cold weather protection, even with the ocean water temperatures at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is sounds really nice to me right now. Ocean 70 degrees is still feels cold. I mean, the water feels cold, but with those air temperatures, you're still going to need some cold weather protection. So keep that in mind as you surf the beaches down there at Hatteras. Now, the south-facing beaches are also experiencing waves in the range of 2 to 4 feet. And actually, I've seen some 1 foot locations. So the south-facing beaches are still smaller than the east-facing beaches. I don't have a particular south-facing beach in mind, but that's a general overview of conditions there. Moving out to a broader picture of the North Atlantic, I did go through a pretty comprehensive weather and climate discussion yesterday, so we're going to, with our more philosophical intro today, we're going to keep it a little bit more simple as we look at wave heights across the North Atlantic. And I might look at winds a little bit. We'll see how I feel as we get to the close of this segment. But the low pressure system just offshore is showing wave heights, and these are significant wave heights in the range of 30 feet, which is pretty substantial. So it looks like we've got a gale out there and a pretty broad circulation of a low pressure system. And again, with significant wave heights, you can sometimes have waves that are double that height. So 30 feet means that you might have a 60-foot wave in there somewhere. That's crazy, if you ask me. Moving closer to shore, though, you can see that the wave heights have come down from recent days, ranging from around 5 to 6 feet just off the Outer Banks. And then as you get into Florida, actually, the wave heights are a little bit higher with 6 to 7 foot waves. Just off the Bahamas, we've got some 6 foot significant wave heights there. And the north facing beaches of the Caribbean also seeing around 6 to 7 foot wave heights. Over here near Europe, wave heights are relatively larger. If you get off the coast of Portugal here, significant wave heights are in the range of 14 feet, which is pretty big. We've got significant wave heights here off Ireland in the range of 9 to 10 feet, and significant wave heights even off the beaches of France in the range of 6 to 10 feet. And the north-facing beaches where you surfers are definitely braving the cold if you're getting out there in the UK are in the range of 10 feet. So still a pretty big and stormy North Atlantic. It's worth noting we have one storm system near the East Coast and one storm system near Europe. And yeah, I think I'll go ahead and look at the air models so that we can look at the winds swirling around these storm systems. I'm kind of curious what the wind speeds are for this system off the Atlantic coast. So, ooh, yeah, 53 miles per hour. So, pretty strong storm there off the U.S. East Coast. Winds associated with this other storm, which is just hanging on We've been reporting on this storm for more than a week now, um, and are still in the gale force range off Portugal there. And now I'm curious. Now I want to find out what the minimum pressures are. So let's look at the no, that's wrong. There we go. So I just want to see where these lows are as far as pressures. This is Earth Null School, and yeah, there are just so many nice tools here with this interactive model. It uses all kinds of models to provide you with a very comprehensive view of weather systems across the world. So the system off the US East Coast is in the 980 millibar range, which is pretty strong, but I'm actually surprised that the wind speeds are quite that high there. We must have like a high variance between cold and warm there to kick up those winds quite so much. And then the system off of Portugal and Spain here is in the looks like 994 millibar range, which is also not crazy strong, but certainly enough to kick up a gale. So basically we've got two gale force systems here out in the North Atlantic. Nothing too crazy as far as pressures, but still some significant wind speeds. And last of all, we've got this storm system in the central US also at 994 millibars. And you can see the way the frontal boundaries are creating this confluence of airflows here. So there's a front that's draped off the U.S. East Coast, and so you've got south and southwest, south and southeast running winds ahead of the front, and west and northerly winds coming in behind it in this like line here. I'll go ahead and zoom in so you can see the frontal line. Ooh, looks like there's a little low trying to form right here too. Interesting. So just watch this convergence because if this turns into a nice little vortex, which it appears to be doing, and pops off the East Coast, it might tap some of the Gulf Stream and hit become a low pressure system. So worth noting, might have a little nor'easter there in the formation. We'll just keep an eye on it in the models that I've seen recently. The expectation was that the front would just whip on off the East Coast with maybe a little low forming, but not really sticking around that long. But yeah, you've got a high pressure system here and a low pressure system here. So if that high blocks the low from heading off into the North Atlantic, then you might end up with a little nor'easter. But what I was talking about before was just looking at frontal lines. And in the Earth null school model, you can see this with the convergence of wind, and the wind itself kind of creates a line that you can clearly see, which is a pretty cool feature here. So in any case, I'm geeking out a little bit about the weather, which is something us surfers can tend to do. But so overall, we've got on the east-facing beaches 3 to 9 foot wave conditions, depending on where you are. At Jeanette's Pier, it's 3 to 5 foot wave conditions, and at most locations, it's in that range. So thank you for joining me for the OBX Wave Report. This has been a pretty fun one. I know we've been a little bit fast and loose with it, but for tomorrow, I guess I will buckle back down to some more technical details. Maybe, possibly. If we got a nor'easter forming off the U.S. East Coast, I certainly will. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and run the GFS model, and I'm going to put it back to winds and see if there's any expected potential for. Oop, yeah, that looks like a low there. Hold on. Um, okay, yeah, so it looks like energy is starting to transfer in this model off to the East Coast, and with winds kicking up onshore here in New England in the range of gale force. But it is expected that this low will form to the north of the Outer Banks. So the winds appear to be whipping around offshore. So we're not going to get as much of an influence here as the Northeast will, according to this model. And let's look at the pressure. So like a low in the 990 millibar range by early tomorrow. I'm sorry, this is the 17th, by early Saturday. So low expected to form off the U.S. Mid-Atlantic and Northeast over the coming days as the low in the Central Atlantic begins to strengthen considerably. So despite the fact that this low is not going to locally impact the Outer Banks in the form of a nor'easter, according to this model, these two systems are likely to generate more of a swell. So something to keep an eye on for wave riders as we go through the coming days and head on into the weekend. So thank you for joining me, and I will be back with you tomorrow between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. with the OBX Wave Report for December the 16th. And in the interim, I am going to have some supplemental videos for you guys. So stay tuned to our YouTube over at Robert Scribbler. In any case, take care, and please remember to do all you can to help save our beautiful and wonderful shores on the boundary of one of the last frontiers on Earth from the ravages of climate